Hey, this is Mike Allard, manager of Max Sabbath, and you are listening to Wait, Go to 11.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder? These go to 11.
Hey, bud.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Hold on one second.
Sure.
I'm just going to select and copy this thing that I'm working on,
All right.
and we will do this for real this time.
Right.
Driving through mountainous weather.
Right.
All right, let's see. I get some headphones going here. Hold on, I assume you probably just want to start over. Yeah, I don't know if you have much from where we started.
No. I mean, I think we were just getting to the origin, I think, of the band, and this is like which is, I guess to me, it's just crazy that the band's been around for 10 years already. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that it blew up so hard so fast, and then it blew up so hard so fast, and then just a few years later, the Aussie thing happens.
mm-hmm.
And then so this is like 7 years later, and then all of a sudden it like goes viral on Twitter, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, people are just finding out about this," and it's just like, well, actually, this thing that happened on Twitter is not really
Right.
that big of a deal compared to what happened in the first few years.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
I mean, with the band, I mean, how would you describe it? Because I think, obviously you use Sabbath and then the restaurant theme, right? But, I think, I don't know whether would you say you guys slot in somewhere between, like, let's say Guar and like Dred Zeppelin. I mean, sure, you're familiar with Dred Zeppelin, right?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the thing that's so unusual about it. I mean, if you're trying to pigeonhole it, that's like
Right.
a way to do it.
Right.
But the thing that's so different, there's so many things about it that are so different from any other band, including bands that are that weird.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because something that's there's really nothing that exists that's so over the top and so colorful and has such a big show and and it's so humorous that also has such a a social message
Mm-hmm.
that's so strong. And so I absolutely love Guar, and I was actually filmed talking in the Dred Zeppelin documentary.
Oh,
I'm
no
not
kidding.
sure if that I don't know if that ever came out. I don't know. I've been meaning to look that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was obviously a fan of that
Right.
band as well.
Yeah.
But being involved with this band is so interesting to see that it's just constantly driving home a social message and trying to get people interested and almost politically active in fighting in fighting the government that's poisoning its citizens in the U.S. Usually when you see something like that,
Mhm.
like a band that's real heavy-handed with their message, like maybe like chattel decapitation
Oh, yeah.
or something like that, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it humor
Right.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that makes it very interesting. And I think it's also very hard to understand what the band is and what the show is by watching individual videos on YouTube. I think that it's such a live, like, I don't think you really get it till you go and see it live.
Right.
I've been told that over and over and over. I mean, I thought it was just me, but then I was convinced, by just talking with fans, but not just fans, but promoters and agents and just everybody who's ever seen it said, "Oh, I had no idea it was going to be like that."
Now, when you guys, I mean, I'm sure you get some promoters probably going, what am I signing up for here? I mean, how much selling do you have to do to some of these promoters to convince them to book
Well,
the
that's not
band?
my department. Fortunately, I don't have to do that
Right.
because I would be terrible at that. Because I think that, and I think that that's one of the band's disadvantages
Hmm.
is, I mean, I guess you can sell it in a headline, in you
Right.
know what I mean. That's the thing with they talk about headline news,
Hmm.
and it's like you got all these people believing all these things and totally investing all these things that one line was written about, and then they read the one line and then they make up their mind,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's the same with music, but I think that some of the more complicated stuff is some of the more interesting stuff, and you could sum this up with one line to sort of like if people are familiar with these certain things, right?
Right. Right. Right.
But you still would have no idea what it's about until you go and see it. And that's what's interesting about it is that it's comp in its simplicity,
Right.
it's also very complicated.
Yeah. Now, how
So
do you,
I could sell it
yeah, right.
by saying, okay, yeah, this concept with this
Yeah,
concept
right.
and this, and I could sell it, but I wouldn't really be being honest about what is really interesting and different and fantastic about it. So
Right. And
yeah,
does it matter? Because I'm sure it happens. It happens with a lot of bands where maybe if there's a particular message that they're trying to drive home, that the message kind of goes over some people's heads. Because I mean,
oh, one hundred percent.
I would imagine, and having been in that at some of your shows in the past, there's some people that are pretty lubricated, throughout the
Sure,
duration of the show that they're
sure,
wanting the show, right?
and some people want to take it in on a surface level, and that's
Hmm.
art, and that's like there's so many kids that come down and buy the t-shirts and then
Hmm.
go take pictures afterwards at the late night fast food place with a
Right,
cheeseburger in one hand
right,
and the
right.
t-shirt, and they're like, "Rawr, Max out the drive through metal," and that's fine, like that's
Yeah,
however you want to take it in. Like it's not, it doesn't come when you go to a show. It's not like it comes off
right.
preachy or something,
Sure.
or like that you're necessarily thinking about all the negative implications of
Yeah.
everything that you're taking in visually and audibly all the senses that you're taking in,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everything you're hearing and seeing and smelling and
It,
uh yeah.
well, how long did it take to kind of perfect the act, you think, from the time of the inception of the band to where you guys got to the point where you're like, we're really firing on all cylinders here and this is some good stuff.
Well, I'd say that's always a consecutive thing. I'd say it was the first year. Yeah, after the first year, it was a lot better than uh, than when it started. But it's better this year than it was last year. So
Sure.
it's always going to be progressing,
Mhm.
hopefully in the right direction until it starts regressing, and then we get like I don't
Yeah.
know Mickey Dio to sing or whatever.
Right, right. Now, I imagine you guys have documented this stuff because I imagine even like the Ron Osborne getup wasn't as we seen it here over the course of the last few years, right? The evolution was probably, you can kind of tell, that this was at the inception of the band and stuff. Or did you guys kind of nail that from the get go?
It's metamorphosized a little bit at
Yeah.
the beginning, but most of that is
Okay.
pretty. It's been pretty
So you
consistent.
had that kind of dialed in from the get go, then, huh?
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Now, one of the things that's interesting about you guys, though, because you inserted yourselves and have gotten the attention of some of the '80s themed type events, right? Like you guys, I think, did Monster Mountain, right? I think you did or did you not do that?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I thought you guys did that.
Absolutely.
So how does that go over? Because there you got like these.
Well, it's interesting, isn't
Yeah,
it? Because
yeah,
I remember early on, the band played 3 shows at at a franchise club called Totally 80s. Now,
okay.
it's literally like an 80s dance club that would stop all of a sudden playing the Thompson Twins and Culture Club,
Right.
and then the band would go up and play. And I thought, this is so interesting that we're playing 3 80s clubs when that was the end of what it is that we're representing.
Right. Right.
Like literally the 80s, in my opinion, was really about the only decade, you know,
Yeah.
after the after the 50s,
Yeah.
that version of Black Sabbath didn't exist.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I thought, well, that's funny. We might
Yeah.
as well play a 50s club,
No
you know?
kidding. Yeah.
But I think that what happens is that Black Sabbath was such an
Right.
important entity in music that they had such a big influence of what happened in the
Right.
80s that when people look back in a blur, it's all connected. It seems the same.
Now, what was the reaction? You know, when you guys hit the stage and people are like, again, having been to some of those events, I know there's some people that are kind of. I mean, to me, it just seems like there's some of those events where people start drinking as soon as they start serving, and by the time you guys hit the stage, I'm sure they're pretty tanked. What the hell?
Sure.
What the hell kind of reactions did you get from that
Well, a
crowd?
lot of shock and awe and extreme enthusiasm and aggression,
Right.
and that's all welcome to a point,
Right.
but even to this day, you find that people it is what it is in their head because they haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they show up expecting what they're expecting. And sometimes when they are tanked, like they say, or just really locked into what they think it should be, they're watching it and screaming out the lyrics, and they're screaming out, Black Sabbath lyrics sometimes.
Right.
And I don't even think they're aware that Ronald has changed all the lyrics to be parody lyrics about fast food and about the evils of fast food.
Right.
But or do they care?
Right.
And it's just kind of funny because and that's really how it was at the beginning, right? Because no one knew what the actual lyrics were. But now you have this point now that so much stuff has gone out on the internet, and we did this full length 7-song pop-up book vinyl that has the lyrics in the pop-up book and stuff.
Right.
A lot of people that do know the lyrics, so you have I don't know if this is a common thing,
Right.
where you have an audience and some of the people are screaming out some lyrics and some of the people are screaming out the other lyrics all at the same time. And, fortunately, I think it's loud enough that it doesn't distract anybody from what's really going on. But yeah, it's
Now, I'm sure this has happened, and I think especially at one of your shows, because like I say, people are there to have a good time. But how many times do you think somebody screamed "Freebird" in the middle of your set? Or has that even happened?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's normal. I've heard people go, "Oh, Freebird," and Ronald will go like, "Oh yeah, free Superbird," which is Superbird is a menu item at Iron Maiden.
Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing, because I was thinking about this. I wanted to ask you guys some kind of off the wall type question, and this is reality. Because we got the guy, we got 45, who's now going to be 47, who's an addict of the restaurant, right? And then you have the other guy that wants to get people healthy, who's in his cabinet. So, what the hell? I mean, that's like a song right there for you guys.
Do you really think any of these guys have any interest in getting anybody healthy, or do you think that all of these guys are just bought off by all these people who are making sure we're all full of poison.
Well, I'm just thinking it's like, one of the guys clearly is addicted to the food, which I think that kind of
Clearly.
goes back to some of the stuff they put into the food to make you wanting to come back for more, right?
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
But is that a song? Is that a song? Would that be a song for you guys? I mean, think about that. I mean, that would be current event / theme for the band.
Fortunately for me and my future of business being good, I never see Ronald getting into partisan because he knows that they're all going to take the money and all continue to poison you
Right.
until the people rise up and decide not to take it anymore.
Right.
And that's what needs to happen here. They are not going to stop taking the money
Right.
and going with it until the people stand up. I mean, you can just see what happened with I don't want to get super into it, but
right.
if you look at the documentary Cowspiracy and how that guy exposed the fact that all the big environmental
Right.
protection companies in this country were bought off by the beef industry and hushed by the beef industry and would not say anything about it. This documentarian put them to the test and made so many people realize and rise up and object to this that finally Greenpeace is who would not comment on it is finally saying, oh yeah, the beef industry is just not, it's not more hard on the environment than emissions.
Yeah.
Which is all anything everybody talks about.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
that's all corporate interest. You know what I mean? So once again, it's like that's like has to do with big electric or whatever. You know what I mean? So,
So you guys just wrapped up the 10th anniversary tour, which, I think when we had initially gotten on the phone and got broken up as you guys were heading over the mountains, and it's like, okay, we'll catch up probably at the tail end, once you guys have wrapped up. But what, with this particular tour, you hit some spots, some places that you probably haven't performed at here in the past, right? Because you guys hit, I don't know if you performed in Bend, Oregon, but that was one of the dates, and that's pretty rural.
I was the third time in Bend, Oregon, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's pretty rural. I mean, what does the crowd there look like for you guys?
Oh man, those guys, those were probably some of the most enthusiastic people on the whole run.
Okay.
I mean, they were when people are chanting along with Ronald during I don't know whether it be More Ribs or Frying Pan. Those were some of the loudest kids I've ever heard.
Right.
In that, it might not have been the biggest crowd,
right,
but it was one of the most enthusiastic. And Vancouver was the first time, and Vancouver was sold out.
Nice.
It was so the first time in 10 years I've ever played there. I was sold out.
Nice.
So,
yeah. And I think, like what you mentioned, I wasn't aware that you had been at Bend a couple times prior to this last go round. But, I think one of the things that I find, even out where I'm at, I think when you do get national acts or, acts like yourselves that are passing through, people show up and they're pretty enthusiastic, regardless of the size of the crowd for the night. I mean, they really get into it, so that's got to be pretty cool. Like you said, there was something cool happening there.
I don't know if you've seen the documentary Heavy Metal Parking Lot.
Yes, I have. Yes.
But sometimes I think about that, and I'm like, wow, I never thought it would get to this point where people seem this fanatical about this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's comforting and scary at the same.
Right. Well, you know,
And
I
I feel like we should make a Bad Sabbath parking lot.
I was just gonna say, you know, I was just gonna ask. I mean, has anybody thrown out the idea of even doing like a mini doc? You know, even something like a 30-minute, 45-minute.
I'm not interested in documenting the band. I think that the way that they have it set up with the mystery and intrigue that it causes, I'm very comfortable with that. But I would be interested in a documentary of the fans.
Ah, so more,
Yeah.
more like you said, just kind of like the parking lot, just the fans and
Yeah.
the rituals and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. There. Right. One of the things that I haven't seen, I mean, are you having people showing up in costume? I haven't seen that. I haven't witnessed that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That is becoming very common.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't witnessed that as of yet, but I'm sure I'll get a chance as the years go on here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wrapped up this tour. Was that it for 2024? And what do you guys got going on for 2025?
The first thing, I don't know if it's announced yet, so I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Sounds like it's a big deal, though.
Well, it's a festival. It's a small festival. I'll just say it's a small festival in Los Angeles.
Oh.
On Valentine's Day.
Oh.
I just don't know if they've. Unfortunately, I think they're probably going to announce it like next week or something.
Now, if you know, I would think that you guys, if this still happens, I don't know. I know I've seen Insane Clown Posse once and was drenched in the Faygo soda, and that was enough for me. But it would seem that you guys would be a perfect fit for like the gathering of the Juggalos. And would you guys be afraid?
Done it twice.
You've done it twice, and you live, and you live. Holy shit!
Oh, come on, this kid get a bad rap, man.
No, I mean the crowd was fine. It's just getting drenched in that, you know, and then having to drive like an hour and a half home.
Yeah.
But so what was that like? Seriously, you know, as an act performing at that festival, holy crap.
Well, both times were actually very, very different. So at least my experience was very, very different.
Right.
So it's hard to the first one was so strange to me because it seemed it was so I just assumed it was gonna be, I don't know, somewhat smaller.
Okay.
And every single person was gonna have Juggalo paint on. Like there was just gonna be every single, you know, that's how I pictured it.
Yeah.
And it was so gigantic. That when we played the second stage. So we were about I felt like it was like a half a mile to the main stage. I never even made it to the main stage because it was so far away. I felt like it was so huge that was just like what everybody in Ohio did. They all just went. It wasn't even like, you know, I barely saw anybody in face paint. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just felt like it was just giant. And I was just knocked over by that because you got to realize these guys have done this with no corporate sponsorship, no radio, no help from anybody. So it to me, it had to be the largest independent, non-corporate festival on the planet. I mean, you could literally not go. There was no stand. We could go and buy Coca-Cola out of the soda fountain or even buy alcohol. They just let you bring in your own alcohol and whatever you want and do whatever you want. I mean, you don't even see that at the Grateful Dead. You know what I mean? Like, it was amazing, you know? And then the second time we were on the main stage, it was a bit of a smaller festival, but the same thing, you know, like the ticket price is low and includes camping, and they let you bring your own alcohol, and there's no corporate anything,
Huh.
anywhere, you know?
Wow.
So you just gotta give it to them. I mean,
Right.
from a band that a lot of times we do get put on big corporate events, and then by the time we get there, they've knocked us off because some lawyer was worried about us offending some sponsor. I have no idea who that could possibly be. We're not a real, this band is not just anti, corporate food. It's
Right.
pretty anti or corporate in general, like the music industry is no saint either.
Right.
That's another industry that this band goes against. And
Right.
you can see that too when you go and try to find the media and everybody's, complaining that it's not on, streaming and it's not on Spotify, it's not on iTunes, and it's not this, and it's not that. It's because whenever you go to Ruddle and try to get them to do whatever the music corporations wants you to do, he feels the same way about it as he does the food, and he goes the opposite direction. And instead of streaming on Spotify,
Right.
you have to buy a vinyl album inside a pop-up book. It's all, tangible and analog.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So you might not like that because it might not be convenient, but that's the whole point of the band. It's this sort of anti-convenience and like wake up and get real, you know? So, yeah.
What would be, I mean, you've done a lot of gigs. I mean, like you said, you were just talking about the Gathering of the Juggalos, some of the other 80s themed events and whatnot. But what would be a dream gig or tour for you guys? I mean, who do you think you could pair up with and go toe to toe? On a nationwide theater club tour. I mean, who would you like to see you guys paired up with that you haven't been with?
I mean, it's such an unusual band that it's hard enough to find, someone to play before the band that makes sense.
Right.
It's even harder to find someone that plays after the band.
Yeah, right.
Makes sense. I mean, of course, I would, anything that's big and theatrical, Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, these, would be the type of things that would make sense to me because, it just visually, it's that kind of, has that kind of appeal.
Yeah.
But,
I think one of the weirdest pairings that I've seen over the years was Green Jelly headlining, and we had Nashville Pussy as the opening band, and I was like, wow, what a weird, that was strange. I mean, both good bands, both good bands, but it was just kind of like, this is just a weird pairing. But
I mean, we were just on tour with the Supersiders. I mean, that's almost, that's equally.
That is different. Yeah, right. That's pretty close, isn't it?
That's a very straightforward, rock and roll band.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
that is pretty similar. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What do you think of them?
Supersiders?
Yeah.
Oh, huge fan. Always got them. I mean, it was strange being out there with those guys because that was, like I said, it's like almost the same.
Oh man,
God bless. I'm dealing with.
Oh geez. But you got along well. It sounds though.
Yeah,
overall.
Absolutely. I mean, I was actually having a conversation with Eddie Spaghetti about this very thing. Just kind of this day before yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Was that isn't it interesting how the crowds melt so well, and that makes sense, and that we can do it again, and we were both saying, it's both, it's just people who like hard rock music, like hard rock and roll, and then one is super silly and one is a lot less silly, but the bottom line is it's the music, so it makes sense.
So I got a couple more things and I'll cut you loose, but thanks so much for your time. This was good, man. It was good. And I will catch you guys next go round. next time you do a tour, I know your publicist reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to see the man?" And I'm like, "Crap." Unfortunately, I already got another commitment, but I haven't seen.
What city are you in again?
Well, I'm actually, you guys were performing in Portland and then did Bend. I'm in the Columbia River Gorge, so I'm like probably like a little over an hour and 15 minutes from Portland east.
Right.
So either way, it was
The
going to be a
original
drive.
idea of this was to promote
Yeah,
that
exactly.
show, and then didn't happen.
And it didn't happen. Hey, that's kind of Spinal Tappy, which leads to the whole thing. The one of the closing questions I have, because this is going to be for We Go to 11, as you know, that's going to kind of Spinal Tappy tie there. But for yourselves, what's a good Spinal Tap story from this last tour that you guys just wrapped up?
Oh, sorry, I don't have one. I could make something up. I mean, that the more things that you have happening, the more things that can go wrong. And, I have heard complaints that's like, oh, you guys are so elitist that it took so long for you to come on after the supporting band or something like that. And it's just like, elitist? You think Max Sabbath is elitist? Like, I'm not. Like you guys just waited around. That's the verbiage. So you guys just waited around to come on. It's like waiting around. It's like no. Nobody's waiting around. It's like when you're having lunch that day, we're there getting ready, and like every minute counts, and there's like very few minutes that anybody has time to stop to sleep or eat or do anything. So that half an hour to 40 minutes or whatever it is in between the bands, there's nobody waiting around. That's when like the most stressful last setup of whatever needs to come up and happen, and all the stuff that's entertaining you all through the show that isn't music needs to happen. Not to mention the fact if something goes wrong with something musically, when you're trying to get to, but there's 100 little things that don't have anything to do with the music that can go wrong, that need to be fixed and that need to be set up immediately right before the show. So this idea that like, when you picture like Axl Rose, sitting backstage and going, no, let's wait another hour because it's feeding my ego. When you're trying to apply it to Max Sabbath, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
It's true.
Because that's just not what's going on here. Because also, when you have a Guns N' Roses tour, you probably employ 100 people to make all that go really fast. And this is not this kind of size crew or budget, or it is DIY. Everybody hands on doing everything to get it done. Right. There's not like one person who has like one silly job, and there's not like a confetti tech or something,
Right. So
everybody's doing everything and they're stressed. So this like, oh, they decided to wait around for 40 minutes is like, wow, somebody's like really delusional about what they're watching and what it takes to make it happen.
Right. Well, Mike, wow. That's a ton of stuff to squeeze into like a 30.
We got all this stupid stuff.
We'll keep it all. But no, so this is what we know. You guys wrapped up the 10th anniversary tour. It went pretty well. There was some stuff that happened that you won't talk about. And you're open to a possible Max Sabbath parking lot, Doc. That sounds great. There's a gig coming up on February 14th of next year that you
In
can
Los Angeles.
in Los Angeles, which
Yes.
we'll leave it up to the listeners to figure that one out. And I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
will roll out a press release on that one as well.
Sure.
And, you know, it sounds like you and Eddie Spaghetti really hit it off. So that's
Yeah.
cool too.